Curtains pinned shut with clothespins in a rented double-wide at the end of a gravel road. Two phones sit face down on a card table, one for calls out, one that was never supposed to leave your pocket, let alone light up. A duffel bag by the door holds everything you own now. Cash, a change of clothes, no ID with your real name on it. Across the street, a sedan you don't recognize has been idling for 11 minutes. Headlights off, engine running. Two silhouettes, not moving. You've spent weeks telling yourself that distance is the same thing as safety. You're about to learn it isn't. This starts weeks earlier, at 5:15 in the morning, when a correctional officer doing a routine count stopped in front of a bunk that looked occupied and wasn't.
Level 1. The missing count. The count doesn't clear. It never does. Not for a bed that's just clothes and a pillow shaped like a shoulder under a blanket. Within minutes, the unit is locked down. Doors sealed, movement frozen, staff working the floor twice to be sure before anyone says the word out loud. A second count. A third. Then a supervisor makes the call, and the word gets said anyway. Escape. You don't get to see any of this. By the time it happens, you're already beyond the secure perimeter, moving through darkness while officers behind you are checking doors, fences, cameras, vehicles, anything that might explain how an occupied cell became an empty one.
Roads nearest the facility begin filling with police. Search teams move toward the surrounding terrain. Your photograph starts traveling in directions you aren't. And leaving federal custody isn't just an extension of the case that put you inside. It can become a new federal charge of its own. For an escape tied to a felony or conviction, that charge can carry years of additional prison time. The sentence you already owed hasn't disappeared either. Whatever you were before, you are now also this, a different kind of wanted. By sunrise, investigators aren't asking whether you escaped anymore. They're asking where someone like you goes first. Level 2. The first hours. Free doesn't feel like you thought it would. It feels like flinching at gas station cameras. It feels like counting exits in a room you've been in for 4 minutes. You pay for a bottle of water and cash you count twice, because suddenly anything connected to your real name feels dangerous. You don't sleep so much as you stop moving for a while. Every headlight that slows down near where you're standing empties something out of your chest before it passes. You catch yourself rehearsing a name that isn't yours, just in case someone asks. Behind you, the search is multiplying. Your intake photograph is distributed to law enforcement. Nearby businesses may be asked about cameras. People connected to you start receiving calls or knocks at the door. Officers compare what they know about your past with the limited number of places a person can realistically reach in the first hours after disappearing. You keep moving because movement feels like progress. But every hour you're outside also creates another hour in which somebody can notice you, remember you, or recognize the face now moving through police bulletins and local news. You tell yourself you'll only need a little quiet. You haven't realized yet how large quiet has to become. Level 3. The machine wakes up. Within days, this isn't only the problem of the institution you left. The U.S. Marshals Service is in the hunt, alongside whatever mix of federal, state, and local agencies the case pulls in. Hunting federal fugitives has been part of the Marshals' job since the agency's earliest days. For you, the agency names barely matter. What matters is that your name can cross a state line faster than you can. A case file begins filling with pieces of your life you thought belonged to different years: old addresses, known associates, family members, vehicles, booking photographs, employment history, prior arrests, and the places you kept returning to before prison. Investigators can build a list of likely destinations before you've even settled on one yourself: a hometown, an ex-partner's place, a cousin's couch 2 states over.
A friend who once told you his door was always open. They don't need to know exactly where you're going. They need to know where your life has taught them you might go. Somewhere, a deputy who has never met you starts learning your entire history from a folder. You don't know their name. Before long, they'll know several of yours. Level 4. Pattern of life. Here's what the search isn't waiting for. One dramatic clue, one lucky break, one movie-style genius move. It's built from smaller things: records, interviews, cameras, sightings, vehicles,
phone numbers, old relationships, familiar destinations. One lead points nowhere. Another confirms something investigators already suspected. A third contradicts both. Then two ordinary details line up, and suddenly a piece of the map matters more than it did yesterday. Real manhunts have tightened exactly this way. When Richard Matt and David Sweat escaped New York's maximum security Clinton Correctional Facility in 2015, the search grew to hundreds of officers. Bloodhounds followed scent. Investigators worked footprints and physical evidence. Then a hunting cabin was found disturbed.
DNA confirmed the escapees had been there. The map moved. In a very different federal case at USP Atlanta, surveillance images, eyewitnesses, cellular records, and other evidence were used to prove an inmate had repeatedly slipped away from custody. No single piece looked like magic. Together, they told investigators where he'd been and what he'd been doing. That's the part that should bother you. The search doesn't need one perfect thread. It needs enough ordinary ones pointing in the same direction. A motel lobby suddenly looks full of cameras. A stranger staring half a second too long becomes suspicious.
A police cruiser traveling the opposite direction stays in your mind for the next 20 miles. You're trying to predict the search. The search doesn't have to predict you perfectly. It only has to keep reducing your options.
Level 5. Crossing lines. Before long, the hunt stops belonging to one county or even one state. Your name and photograph move across jurisdictions, while tips begin coming from places you've never been. A caller 300 miles away reports someone who looks like you. Another sighting puts you somewhere in the opposite direction. Most of them will be wrong. They still have to be sorted. If a reward is announced, strangers now have another reason to remember details they would have forgotten yesterday. Local news runs your face between the traffic report and the weather. You start recognizing your own photograph on a gas station television before you recognize the anchor's voice. For a while, this feels like proof you're winning. The search is enormous. Thousands of square miles, dozens of roads, more tips than anyone could chase perfectly. You're one person somewhere inside all of it.
But the task isn't to search every mile in the country. It's to work out which miles matter to you. Every false sighting gets discarded. Every impossible destination disappears. Every person who hasn't heard from you becomes one fewer place worth watching. The map doesn't collapse all at once. It just keeps getting smaller. And the thing that eventually shrinks it fastest isn't waiting on a highway. It's somebody you left behind.
Level 6. The call. Somewhere along the way, being alone becomes harder than being hunted. You haven't heard a familiar voice in what feels like forever. You haven't been anyone's brother, anyone's son, anyone who gets asked how their day was. After enough nights alone, the risk starts feeling smaller than the silence. So late one evening, on a phone you bought after the escape, you call your sister. You don't tell her where you are. You don't say much of anything real. You're okay. You're sorry. You'll explain everything someday, when this is over. She's crying before you finish the second sentence. For 4 minutes, you're not a case number or a face on a wanted notice. You're her brother again.
Then you hang up. The room goes quiet. You stare at the phone and replay the conversation. No address, no town, no plan. Nothing useful. That's what you tell yourself. But with the right legal authority, that call can become more than a voice. You made the call because you couldn't stand feeling alone. You hang up believing it changed nothing.
Level 7. Watching someone else. By now, investigators don't have to search only for you. The people closest to you matter too, because eventually, even someone trying to disappear may reach back toward the life they had before. Your sister hasn't escaped from anything. She isn't automatically part of your crime because you called her. But she's now one of the few people you trusted enough to contact when contacting anybody carried risk, and that makes the relationship important. Investigators ask whether you've called before, whether you've asked for money, whether you've mentioned a place, whether anyone unfamiliar has appeared near the house, whether she knows who might be helping you. She tells them almost nothing, because almost nothing is what she knows. That doesn't make the questions stop.
She becomes afraid of answering the phone, afraid of not answering it, afraid of saying too much, afraid that protecting you and helping you might stop meaning the same thing legally.
Fear does most of what betrayal does in these stories. It just does it slower. And the public search, meanwhile, starts feeling quieter. No dramatic new sighting, no fresh footage, no headlines saying they're closing in. You mistake that silence for the search losing interest, but silence can mean something else. It can mean they no longer need the whole country looking. They only need a few places.
Level 8. The Quiet Street. By now, nobody needs to search 6 states equally. They need to confirm one address. A communication, a relationship, a vehicle, a sighting, whatever combination brought investigators here, certainty matters more than drama now. So they wait, and they watch. An unmarked vehicle appears on the road. Another passes once, then again later. Somebody pays attention to which cars come and go. Nobody kicks down a door just because a rumor points at it. They build confidence first. That's the sedan across the street. 11 minutes. Then 20. Headlights off. Engine running. 2 silhouettes. You look through the curtain again and tell yourself nobody hunting you would sit somewhere that obvious. Then the sedan leaves. Relief hits almost immediately. An hour later, another vehicle takes its place farther down the road. That's when the thought you've been avoiding finally becomes impossible to push away. The search didn't lose you. It arrived before you noticed.
Everything after that happens smaller than you imagined. Movement outside, a voice near the door, the unmistakable rhythm of several people who already know which room they're approaching. Then the knock. A voice identifies law enforcement. For a second, your eyes go to the back door. Maybe 10 steps, maybe less. Your body starts building the idea before your mind finishes it. Then you picture what happens if armed officers outside see that door move. The idea dies. There's no last chase, no last stand, nothing that would make good footage. Just the particular stillness of a room where everybody already knows how this ends.
Some tired part of you has probably known since the first sleepless night. You open the door. Hands take your wrists. Cuffs close. Someone searches you while another officer clears the room. The phones disappear into evidence bags. The duffel stays where you dropped it. And after weeks spent measuring freedom in miles, you're placed in the back of a vehicle where the doors don't open from your side. The curtains are still pinned shut when they take you away. The card table is still there. One of the phones that sat face down on it is now sealed inside an evidence bag. The sedan wasn't a stranger's car. It was part of a search that had been narrowing long before you noticed the road outside getting quiet. What follows is less cinematic. Processing, interviews, court appearances. The escape allegation is now another federal problem layered onto the sentence you were already serving. And an escape on your record can follow you into whatever custody comes next. Your family gets left with a different kind of consequence. Questions, scrutiny, fear, anger, and the knowledge that loving someone doesn't stop their decisions from reaching your front door. You thought escaping meant putting enough distance between yourself and one locked room.
But distance was never the only thing being measured. They were measuring your habits, your relationships, the places you might return to, and the people you might eventually miss badly enough to contact. You crossed state lines trying to become harder to find. In the end, it wasn't a roadblock. It wasn't a helicopter. It wasn't some impossible piece of technology. It was 4 minutes on the phone with the one person you still wanted to hear your name. 4 minutes you told yourself were nothing. 4 minutes that helped turn an entire country into one quiet street.